Today's class will be given by His Grace Mahavishnu Prabhuji on the topic Srimad Bhagavatam 4.7.16. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, you are there on the call.
This is my humble obeisances, our Lord Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you, Prabhuji, for giving your association. Please take over the call, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the service. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Akkanati Sandhya Bhaktimilitam Dina Tasmai Shri Namo. Om Vishnu Padhaya Krishnaya Srimati Bhakti Siddhanta Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Vishesha Shunyabhadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhya Evacha Vidhanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Canto 4 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 7, text number 16. Maitreya Uvacha Samapyaivam Samidhansam Brahmana Chamantrita Karma Sanghanayam Masa Upadhyaya Adhibhi. The great sage Maitreya said, thus being pardoned by Lord Shiva, King Daksha, with the permission of Lord Brahma, again began the performance of the yajna, along with the great learned sages, the priests, and others. Even though there's no purport here, there are some interesting points that are at least very important for my own personal development. And these are certainly things that I struggle with in my own spiritual development and in my own personal development. So I would like to share some of my realizations just even on this translation alone. Daksha got into trouble because of pride, a lack of humility. Because of his lack of humility, because of his pride, he then began to, as we know, verbally offend Lord Shiva, saying so many unfortunate insults at Lord Shiva, basically due to pride, a lack of humility. So really, humility is the problem that Daksha was grappling with. We'll come back to that. We know the story. There's a story in the Mahabharata. We know this very well, but a story is always fun, so I shall share it, of course. Remember, I think it was the 13th day of the battle at Kurukshetra, 12th or 13th day. And Arjuna was having difficulty vanquishing a particular group of warriors. And the Pandavas were gaining the upper hand, but they were having some difficulty. Particularly Arjuna was having some difficulty with a particular group of warriors on the side of the Kauravas. So Duryodhana was becoming frustrated, and he went to Dronacharya and he said, please, can you do something? The Pandavas are getting the upper hand. We have a much bigger army. We have much greater generals, but still the Pandavas are gaining the upper hand. So then Dronacharya promised Duryodhana that one great general will fall on the next day. So Dronacharya hatched the plan with Jayadratha and others, and as we know, they set up the formation, the military formation, in the form of a wheel, chakravyuha, right? And at the opening of this chakravyuha, there where they put Jayadratha, because Jayadratha, we won't get into the details of that, but Jayadratha had the special benediction that he would be able to defeat the Pandavas so long as Arjuna was not available, was not around. So they made an arrangement that these group of warriors that were giving Arjuna a hard time, these warriors, they would take Arjuna and they would draw him off into a separate section or a separate remote area of the Battle of Kurukshetra, and they would engage and keep Arjuna busy fighting in that remote area of the battlefield, so that Jayadratha could hold the Chakravyuha, prevent the Pandavas from entering the Chakravyuha and cause mayhem. So that's what had happened. The Chakravyuha was destroying the Pandava army, and the Pandavas, King Yudhishthira, they were trying to find out who could break this formation, because the formation was destroying the army. And Abhimanyu said, well, I can do it, but I just have a problem. I know how to break the formation. I know how to enter the formation, but I don't know how to break out of it. And the Pandavas said, headed by Yudhishthira, remember, Arjuna is busy. He's fighting these other warriors. I believe they were the Trigartas, but I'm not sure, these other warriors. That's immaterial. Yudhishthira said, well, don't worry, my dear Abhimanyu. You break it open. I, Bhima, Nakul, Sahadev, and the rest of the Pandava army, we will follow you into the Chakravyuha, and we will break it apart from the inside. So you just break open the phalanx, you break open the formation, we will be right behind you. So they hatched that plan. They put Abhimanyu at the front, and in a very valiant manner, he broke through the formation, destroyed it. However, even before Yudhishthira and Bhima and the rest of the Pandavas could exploit the breakthrough, Jayadratha immediately was able to close it off, because he had gotten this benediction from, I believe it was Lord Shiva. That's another story. We won't get into that. Otherwise, the class will go till 11 o'clock. So Jayadratha was able to stop Yudhishthira and the Pandavas from following Abhimanyu. So Abhimanyu, of course, went deeper and deeper into the Chakravyuha. And that story goes on. We know these 7 warriors, headed by Dronacharya, they ganged up on Abhimanyu and they murdered him against the rules of war. Arjuna does not know this. He's fighting these other warriors in a remote area of the battle. The sun goes down. He returns to camp. Hostilities end when the sun goes down. He returns to camp. He's used to seeing his brothers and his sons come and greet him. No one came to greet him. The camp is melancholy. The camp is quiet. The camp is subdued and depressed. He goes into the tent of Maharaj Yudhishthira and his brothers, and he sees no one will look at him in the eye. No one looks straight to him in the face. And he knows something is wrong. Something has happened. So he says to Maharaj Yudhishthira, what have you done? What's happened? What have you guys done in my absence? So they relay the story about how Dronacharya had created the Chakravyuha, how they had asked Abhimanyu to break it open. They attempted to follow, but Jayadratha had closed it off. Arjuna became furious. And he made a vow that he would kill Jayadratha before the end of the following day. Now, this is the point we really want to address and get to. Arjuna made this vow to kill Jayadratha by the end of the following day, or he himself would commit suicide. He would enter fire. 2 things happened. Some of the Pandavas were very, very elated. They were very happy. Not because they wanted Arjuna to commit suicide, is that they fully believed that Arjuna could do this. Right? They had faith in Arjuna's prowess, and they wanted revenge for what had happened to Abhimanyu. So some Pandavas, headed particularly by Bhima, they cheered on Arjuna. So Arjuna was feeling very confident about and appreciative of the confidence displayed by Bhima and so on and others. But then there was another group, headed by Krishna and Satyaki. Satyaki was Arjuna's disciple. And they both pulled Arjuna aside, particularly Krishna. I said, my dear Arjuna, Krishna says to Arjuna, do you not know what's going to happen tomorrow? And Arjuna says, what do you mean? And Krishna is saying, Duryodhana is very good at statecraft. Duryodhana is very good at these spying activities. His spies are, you can guarantee they're going to find out that you've made this vow, and tomorrow they're going to set up the entire army to frustrate you, to prevent you from killing Jayadratha. And if you fail, you're going to have to commit suicide. You're going to have to enter fire. Once you are done, everything is over. If you commit suicide, Yudhishthira, Bhim, Nakul, Sahadev, they cannot defeat the Kauravas. Karna is still there. Dronacharya is still there. There is no way your four brothers is going to be able to win the war. And the rest of the army is going to be decimated. Your four brothers, that's a death sentence for everybody. You have no idea what you've done. You have basically given up, or you've handed victory to the Kauravas. And what is very, very important in this point in the story, Arjuna, without hesitation, he says, Krishna, I have you as my charioteer. Whatever happens is for the benefit of myself and everyone involved. Obviously, Arjuna has just heard the Bhagavad Gita, right? But this was Arjuna's response, without hesitation. And it's described that even Satyaki, at first Satyaki was with Krishna. He's like, yes, Krishna's right. Arjuna, you made a mistake. But when Arjuna said this, when that was Arjuna's reply, even Satyaki turned and he said, Krishna, Arjuna is right. With you as his charioteer, whatever happens, whether Arjuna fails or succeeds, it will all be to the benefit of everybody involved. This was Arjuna's faith in Krishna. Now let's go a little bit more into the story. The following day, this is actually very important. I'm not just telling a story for the sake of telling stories, even though we enjoy hearing stories, right? The next day, as Krishna predicted, that is what happened. Dronacharya, Duryodhana's spies, had found out what Arjuna had promised, his vow. Duryodhana went to Dronacharya, and they set up the entire Kaurava army in such a manner that it would frustrate Arjuna. Now, remember, up until this time, the Battle of Kurukshetra, the commanders, they would set up the army in one particular formation, whether it was Chakra Vyuha, Krauncha Vyuha, this Vyuha, that Vyuha, whatever formation. On this day, Dronacharya set up the Kaurava army in 3 formations. 3 entirely different formations. So it was not that Arjuna had to pierce only one formation that day. Arjuna had to pierce 3 different formations to get to Jayadratha. One of those formations was the Chakra Vyuha. This was the situation that Arjuna was faced with. And then Dronacharya gave a special task to Karna. He told Karna, my dear Karna, what I want you to do is, I want you to go and I want you to try to either kill or capture. Dronacharya knew Karna could not kill. But he told Karna, you go, you try to kill or capture the other 5 Pandavas, Yudhishthira, Bhima, Nakul, Sahadev. You engage those 4 warriors and you try to either kill or capture them, particularly King Yudhishthira. So that was the battle plan for the day. So the sun rises, the conch shells are blown, Arjuna goes to try to get to Jayadratha. The Mahabharata describes a specific distance between where Arjuna started and where Jayadratha was being protected. I don't know the exact number, but it was so many miles that Arjuna had to go through the entire Kaurava army to reach Jayadratha. Arjuna's going, he's fighting his way towards Jayadratha. Now what is very interesting, and again I say all this and I explain all this for a purpose here, which I will get to, of course. Arjuna is going through But remember now, Karna is chasing the other Pandavas. He attacks Nakul, and he defeats Nakul. He attacks Sahadev, he defeats Sahadev, but he does not kill them, because remember, Karna made a promise to Kunti that he would not kill any of the brothers, the 5 Pandavas. He would only kill Arjuna. So he goes after Sahadev, he defeats Sahadev. He goes to Nakul, defeats Nakul. He goes even to Bhima. It's actually very funny the story of the fight between Bhima and Karna on this day. Karna defeats Bhima, but Bhima, he never admits defeat. This is Bhima's nature. He never admits defeat, right? When Karna challenged Nakul and Sahadev, he broke their bow, he destroyed their chariot, and then he told them to go and, go back to the camp and visit their mother and tell their mother to bind their wounds. He basically treated them like children, right? And very humiliated, Nakul and Sahadev left the battlefield. Well, they left the area. Bhima was entirely different. The description is almost humorous, the description between Karna and Bhima, their battle. Karna kills Bhima's horses. Bhima's on foot, right? He's bloodied, he's wounded by Karna's arrow, and Karna is still fighting with Bhima. And Bhima's picking up the carcasses of elephants and throwing them at Karna. He's picking up the carcasses of horses. He's throwing chariots. Anything at hand, Bhima is hurling at Karna. And Karna is chopping all these things to pieces with his bow and arrow, right? So finally, Karna comes close enough to Bhima. And what Karna likes to do is he likes to use his bow, and he likes to touch the tip of his bow to the head of the warrior whom he has defeated, whom he's trying to humiliate. So he uses it as a form of humiliation. He touches the bow to their head, says, "Oh, you little boy, leave war fighting to men. You go back and you tell Kunti how you got hurt." This is how Karna humiliates people. So Karna came and he was trying to touch his bow to Bhima's head. Bhima, he doesn't accept this kind of nonsense. Bhima grabs Karna's bow from Karna's hand, and he hits Karna over the head with his own bow. And Karna is bleeding from his This is Bhima, right? He hits Karna over the head with his own bow, and Karna's bleeding from where Bhima has hit him. And Karna's charioteer has to drive him away because Bhima is not giving up the issue. So Karna, even though he defeated Bhima, Karna had to leave the battlefield because Bhima is he's too intense. But now Karna comes to Yudhishthira. And he challenges Yudhishthira, he defeats Yudhishthira. And now what he's doing, he's coming to capture Yudhishthira. Because if he captures Yudhishthira, the plan is to capture Yudhishthira and to challenge Yudhishthira to another game of dice. Right? That is the idea that Dronacharya and Duryodhana had. Well, this really Duryodhana had. Duryodhana had his idea, Karna should capture Yudhishthira. They would challenge him to another game of dice and do this whole 13-year exile all over again and just keep going like this. That was the idea, to stop the war, right? To win the war. So Karna and Yudhishthira is fighting, and Yudhishthira is becoming defeated, right? Karna is killing his charioteer, killing the horses, breaking apart Yudhishthira's chariot. So Yudhishthira begins to blow his conch shell. As we know, the conch shell of Yudhishthira is Ananta Vijaya, right? Yudhishthira blows his conch shell. And Arjuna, who is halfway to Jayadratha on the other end of the battlefield, he hears Yudhishthira's conch shell, Ananta Vijaya, signaling that Yudhishthira is in distress. Arjuna tells Krishna, "My dear Krishna, we have to turn around and go all the way back to the beginning to protect Yudhishthira. Because if Yudhishthira is captured, then the whole thing is lost." So Krishna turns the chariot around and goes all the way back to where Yudhishthira is fighting with Karna, and then Arjuna has to chase away Karna. Now, in some versions of the Mahabharata, this happens 3 times. Karna attacks Yudhishthira, and 3 times Arjuna has to come back and save Yudhishthira. Some versions of the Bhagavad Gita is only once. Whatever the case may be, this is what had to happen. Now, what is also important about this day is that, and I'm telling the story for a reason, so please bear with me. This is the first time, I think this is the 13th day of the battle. This is the first time where this particular situation happens. Arjuna's chariot, Arjuna got the horses and the chariot from the burning of the Kanda forest. Remember that? I won't get into that story. That's a whole other story where Arjuna got from Agni the chariot and the horses which draw his chariot, right? So we won't go into that whole story. Basically, the chariot and the horses of Arjuna's chariot, they are divine. They are not ordinary horses and chariots, right? They are divine. They're from the heavenly planets, basically. This is the first time and the only time in the entire 18-day battle of Kurukshetra that Arjuna's horses became exhausted. The first time and the only time. It was on this day that Arjuna's divine celestial horses became exhausted. So Krishna turns to Arjuna and says, my dear Arjuna, we have to stop here. The horses are wounded, they're tired, they need to rest. And this was, the Mahabharata describes, this was after midday. This is like mid-afternoon, so it's coming closer to sunset. So there's not a lot of time to waste. So Arjuna says, okay, well, Arjuna gets off the chariot, and Krishna says, we need water for the horses. This is the battle of Kurukshetra. How many of you, some of you have been to Kurukshetra, right? Kurukshetra, of course, as is described in the Mahabharata, it is a barren plain. Kurukshetra now, I was not in Kurukshetra. Last time I was in Kurukshetra was in the 1980s. But it was not the most hospitable area. It was not lush green grasses all over the place, right? The horses needed water. So Arjuna, using his divine weapons, he creates a pool of water for the horses to drink. This is in the middle of the battle. Now the Kauravas have not stopped attacking Arjuna. Arjuna's on foot, he's off the chariot, but the Kauravas are still, the entire army is still trying to kill Arjuna even though he's on foot. So Arjuna is fighting with the entire army, digging a well with his arrows, right? Creating a pond for the horses to drink. And Krishna says, my dear Arjuna, how can the horses rest when there's a war going on? Please create some kind of a stable for the horses. So Arjuna, while fighting with the entire army, constructs with his bow and arrows a stable for Krishna to take the horses inside, water the horses, massage the horses, take care of their wounds, and so on and so forth. So Krishna's in the stable with the horses, and Arjuna is on foot fighting the Kauravas. We know the story goes on. The horses are, Krishna attaches the horses to the chariot. They go forth. It appears that Arjuna is not going to make it. Krishna uses his illusion, Maya, to cover the sun to make it look like the sun has set. Jayadratha comes out. Arjuna cuts his head off, and so on and so forth. I've told this entire story for a very, very specific reason. This chapter is about Daksha's pride, his lack of humility that has gotten him into trouble. We all have this struggle with humility. I was doing a course, a leadership course, as part of my career development, in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This was many, many years ago, by Stephen Covey. And he had a very interesting definition of humility. His definition of humility was to not to think less of ourselves, but to think of ourselves less. In other words, not to be self-centered, not to be egocentric, not to be solely concerned, only concerned with my own personal well-being, not to be concerned with what is good for me and myself and my own, right? Aham mameti, I and mine. I found that to be a very, very, one of the many wonderful definitions of humility. Daksha was solely concerned with himself, aham mameti, his own prestige, his own glory. There was a lack of humility that Daksha was conditioned with and caused a problem of him speaking and verbally abusing Lord Shiva. Developing humility is a very, very difficult prospect. Developing the ability to not be egocentric, to not be selfish is very, very difficult, because that is part and parcel of our material condition. That is part and parcel of our material nature, right? Ahaya, Nidra, Maitana, and Bhaya. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Bhaya, this fearfulness. What is this fearfulness about? Self-preservation. This is what fearfulness, we're trying to protect, we're trying to preserve ourselves. That's what this fear is about. Self-preservation is the first law of nature, is one English saying, right? Bhaya, this principle of self-preservation, is inherent in the conditioning of every living creature. So when we are concerned with preserving ourselves, it becomes very difficult to also practice humility. How do we reconcile the two? We have this strong impetus, we have this strong drive to preserve ourselves, but at the same time that is counter to what it means to be humble. How do we reconcile the two? How can we still practice and be humble while having this push to preserve ourselves? And it's not only to preserve our life. We try to preserve many different things. We try to preserve our wealth, try to preserve our health. And that's easy to understand. We also try to preserve our prestige, right? We try to preserve our pride. We try to preserve our reputation. We try to preserve our beliefs that give us confidence. We try to preserve beliefs that make us feel better about ourselves. We try to preserve beliefs that make us feel like we are right and other people are wrong. We try to preserve all kinds of beliefs that gives us a feeling of security, self-confidence, false self-confidence, false appreciation. We try to preserve these beliefs that lead to self-aggrandizement. So we try to preserve many things. Let's not make the mistake of thinking that this bhaya, this principle of self-preservation, is only about preserving our life. That's easily understood. But we try to preserve our way of thinking. When we hold on, we try to preserve, when we try to win an argument, right? This is bhaya. We're trying to preserve an idea because we are wrapped up into, our identity is wrapped up in this idea. Our identity is wrapped up into our feeling of self-confidence. Our identity is wrapped up in winning a particular argument. So we try to preserve our rightness, our correctness, our beliefs, our ideas, our ideology, our concepts. So long as we try to preserve and hang on to these things, we are incapable of practicing humility. How do we reconcile the two? If we do not reconcile the two, if we act only according to, or if we are driven by pride. Pride is one of the Arisha Dwargas, right? The 6 enemies of the human being, of the living creature, right? Lust, anger, greed, so on and so forth. If we are governed by pride, if we are driven by pride, then we will inevitably engage in aparad. Several weeks ago, we went over in detail the 4 types of aparad, right? We won't go over it here. We're already running short of time. When we are governed by pride, then we will become like Daksha, and we start committing various types of aparad. Nam aparad, dham aparad, seva aparad, and the worst of all, Vaishnava aparad, as Daksha has done here. So the elimination of pride is absolutely critical to our spiritual well-being, our spiritual development, our spiritual growth. But again, back to the point, how do we reconcile this? We are driven by this principle of bhaya, fearfulness, this principle of self-preservation, preserving ourselves, our beliefs, our conditioning, our ideas, our concepts. That leads to egocentricity, that leads to selfishness, self-centeredness, which is the opposite of humility. How do we reconcile this? Those who worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. To those who worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. This is the reason why I relate the whole story of Arjuna, Jayadratha, Abhimanyu, etc. Arjuna put his full faith that whatever he did not have, Krishna would provide for. Whatever needed to be preserved, Krishna would preserve. So Arjuna could do his duty completely free of pride. To be free from pride, we must put everything at Krishna's lotus feet. Our problem is we try to take control ourselves. When we try to take control ourselves, when we think we ourselves are in control, then pride is a natural consequence. It is because Arjuna said, my dear Krishna, my dear Satyaki, I have you with me. That's all that is required. And even Satyaki had to agree. You know, Krishna, what Arjuna says is correct. When we lean upon Krishna, when we put our entire life, faith, ideas, concept, everything on Krishna, Krishna says, I will carry what you lack and I preserve what you have. Krishna tells Arjuna, declare it boldly that my devotees never perish. This is how we conquer pride. This is how we conquer fear. I was giving a lecture a few weeks ago about the principles of dharma. The entire lecture was about dharma. Dharma, 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 dharma. And naturally someone, at the end of the lecture, Mahavishnu, Krishna says, Sarva dharma parityaja mamekam sharanam braja, right? Give up all dharma and surrender unto me. So why are you going dharma, 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 dharma? It is the second line of that verse that is all important. Mam ekam sharanam. Mam ekam sharanam. If we put all of our faith in Krishna, the principles of dharma are irrelevant. When we put all of our faith in Krishna, Duryodhan, Dronacharya, Jayadratha that we encounter in our life are all irrelevant. Whatever we need in life is taken care of. Whatever we do not have, Krishna will provide for. Whatever we have that is of use to us, Krishna will protect and maintain. But Mam ekam sharanam vraja. We must have singular faith in Krishna. That is the key. That is the ingredient. Then pride, bhaya, is eliminated. Humility is a natural consequence when we put everything on Krishna. We can conquer the world not for ourselves, but for Krishna. Srila Prabhupada said, well, it was rumored, Srila Prabhupada said, that with a few good men I could conquer the world in 18 days. It was rumored Prabhupada said that. But if we look and see, Prabhupada did conquer the world. There was not recently, it was actually several years ago, but there was an article in one of the major American business magazines praising and remarking about successful entrepreneurs of the 20th century. And there were big, big names on this list of persons. Now, this is a business magazine, nothing to do with spirituality or anything like that. Prabhupada's name was on that list. Prabhupada's name was on that list because just from a business perspective, an entrepreneurial perspective, Prabhupada did what no one else has ever done before, particularly at his age and with what he started out with, strictly from a business perspective. In Boston here, we have a very special Leela, a very special Utsav, a very special festival that we celebrate, and it is Prabhupada's arrival in America. And we go to Boston Harbor, we have Guru Puja, Srila Prabhupada, and we read the story, the pastime which Prabhupada's coming to America. And we read the poem Prabhupada wrote on the Jaladuta, where Prabhupada says, Krishna, essentially, what am I doing? This is all on you. All I can do is repeat what you say, make me dance, make me dance, make me dance. This is all on you, Krishna. Prabhupada came to Massachusetts. He saw snow for the first time, and he thought someone had painted the city. Think about that. In other words, the United States could have been a different planet compared to what Prabhupada was used to. So simply from a business, a mundane, materialistic business perspective, Prabhupada did what no one had ever done in his situation. Going to a foreign country, not knowing anybody, with $13 in your pocket, in the local currency, whatever it may be, and establishing something that no one had ever had any clue about prior to his arrival. Markine Bhagavad Dharma, beautiful poem. To those who worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. The problem is that we don't do that. With exclusive devotion, Mam Ekam Sharanam, we have very, very little faith. Arjuna, as he said, my dear Krishna, yes, the Kauravas are going to throw everything they have at me. They're going to try to capture Yudhishthira. They're going to try to kill my brothers. My horses, my divine celestial horses, are going to become tired and exhausted. I have you. This does not mean that Arjuna did not endeavor. This does not mean that Arjuna did not try to do everything he could. Arjuna fought on foot. He never gave up. He fought on foot. He went all the way back to the start of the military formation to rescue Yudhishthira. Some versions said he did it 3 times. Arjuna never, ever gave up. But even so, he never, ever lost faith in Krishna. This is how we eliminate pride. Even though we have this strong drive, strong push for self-preservation. So I'll end there. If there are any questions or realizations to share, please do so. Hari Hari.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanat Pranam. Krishna Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Especially you were talking about pride. So we always struggle. Everything, whatever we do, we think we are the doer, and then, oh, I'm doing this nicely today. All these things, every time comes the pride always in our heart, but the lack of surrender. You explained very nicely, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hari Hari.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandvat Pranam, Office Prabhupada and Gurudev. Thank you very much for your valuable association. Dandvat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandvat Pranam, August Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for the wonderful class, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, you were telling the story about Arjuna and what happened to his horses, and so somehow I did not hear it properly. So what happened to the end? What was the moral for the story?
The moral for the story is that twofold. The moral was twofold. Number one, Arjuna never gave up doing his duty. He never gave up. He never lost hope. And he always had complete faith that as long as he had Krishna with him, all of the obstacles that were coming his way, tired horses, Karna chasing his brothers, trying to capture Yudhisthira, all the obstacles that came his way, he stayed the course, he stayed on focus, and he always had faith that with Krishna, his vow, or whatever was going to happen, whether the vow was fulfilled or not, the best outcome would always happen because Krishna was with him. It was Arjuna's faith in Krishna that allowed him to keep going, and to never give up hope. And to do so with enthusiasm, with faith, with determination, because of his faith in Krishna, despite all the obstacles that he was faced with.
Yes, Prabhuji, very true. And we should have the same faith in Krishna and Srila Prabhupada, and same way we should serve the Srila Prabhupada's movement in that same mood. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, just one comment. Remembering, it's very difficult to come out from the pride, but remembering the point in our material life also, we are always looking for happiness and always try, even though there is no happiness, we try for maybe next moment the happiness comes. And we do so many things. Maybe in that way, if we try to surrender Krishna, one day maybe the pride may go. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. It's very, very beautiful.
Thank you. That was very, very good comment. I must agree entirely. Yes, you're correct. Absolutely. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mahavishnu Prabhu. This is Damodarananda Das from Bloomington. Thank you very much for the nice lecture and the story from Mahabharata. Your knowledge of scriptures is very impressive. And tying that story with the theme of the today's Bhagavatam class was very nice. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. I credit all my teachers made sure I learned something. They would not give up on me. They were very determined to make sure I learned something. It is all due to their Hare Krishna. Yes.
All glories to Acharyas. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Hare Krishna, yes. I also wanted to mention, just before we end here, that there were so many of you from Atlanta. Veda Sara sent me some pictures of his Food for Life program. So those of you who are in Atlanta, if you see him, give him my respects and obeisances, that he's doing a wonderful Food for Life program in the Atlanta area. So give him my respects if you see him. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, what is the name of the devotee who is doing that Life program?
Veda Sara. I believe he's the president of the Atlanta Temple. Veda Sara is his name. Veda Sara Prabhu.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Mataji is our temple president in Atlanta Temple.
Yes. Give him my obeisances, and I love the pictures he sent me about the Food for Life program. He's doing a wonderful service there.
Sure, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for appreciating.
Thank you. Okay, so I suppose we end there. Thank you, Mataji. Thank all of you for allowing me to serve and associate with you in the early mornings. It's very good that I can start my day off with some Hari Katha, Krishna Katha. So thank you so much.
Yeah, let's pay obeisances to all the Vaishnava. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubheva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo ananta koti vaishnavrinda ki